of everybody. Like, everybody's nice, and I was pushing the stroller earlier to go get some food, and this random stranger just opened the door for me and helped me put the stroller through. So, I love St. Louis.
That
Thank you all.
Midwestern politeness.
Yes, exactly. I live in LA now, and I went to school in Austin, and I miss that Texan like friendliness. Everyone in LA is busy, and anyway, 4:30. I stalled long enough to start on time. You see that? You see what I did? I had to stall, you know, to start on time. But this is, you've joined us for video games careers, how to forge your way into the industry, so to speak. And I'm thrilled to be up here with incredible game developers and game enthusiasts. So what we'll do is we'll do introductions, and then we'll dive into the topic. But before we do, I want to remind everybody that all of my panels are you-focused. So if Carol, for example, is saying something that you really want to hear more about, or you want to hear her extrapolate a little bit on her point, you can tweet me anytime at Janice Davis. I'll be checking my Twitter feed all throughout the panel. That way, you know, if you have a comment or a question that you really want to weave in, you can do it live, you know, as we unveil, rather than having to wait. And, you know, some things are pressing, right? Some things you really want to tweet out and get answered. So feel free to do that. Or, of course, wait for the Q&A at the end. And we're a family here, so, you know, join in. So I'll start. I'm Janice Davis. I am a moderator for Wizard World and for San Diego Comic-Con. I host a video game podcast called The Gamers Dominion that the producer Scott Murray just started a few months ago, and we interview game developers. Carol actually was one of my guests on the show.
It was so much fun. You're so good at podcasting.
Thank you so much. She's gonna make me blush. Okay.
That's my goal for today, is to just make Janice as big as possible.
So I do the podcasting. I also write. I wrote a video game thriller that I forgot to post up there called The Holder's Dominion. It weaves in video games and of college life, so feel free to check that out if you're into MMOs. And that's me in a nutshell. Oh, I have a daughter, a brand new daughter. Her name's Cora.
It's not me. I'm not.
Right. But Carol has been with me through my pregnancy, through everything. Yeah, that's me. Carol, you go next.
Yeah, hi, I'm Carol Mertz. I am one of the partners at Happy Badger Studio, which is a game development company here in St. Louis, where I have done mobile games. We're working on a console game right now, and I've also done a card game. So I kind of run the gamut in game design. I'm also the president of the St. Louis Game Developer Co-op, which is the local nonprofit organization here in St. Louis that offers support, resources, and networking opportunities for game developers here in the city.
You guys have a booth here.
We do actually have a booth here in the gaming area. Check it out. There's 4 games. My studio's TJ's. There's a card game developer called Genius Games, and there is Graphite Lab has a game called High Jump. So there's 4 really cool games from St. Louis that you can go play right now, which is awesome. And I also am one of the co-organizers of Pixel Pop Festival, which is just a games convention here in St. Louis in October. So.
Round of applause for Carol. Thank you so much, Carol. TJ, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm TJ Hughes. I'm also part of Happy Badger Studio. I do the technical art, so pretty much I make the games pretty. But I'm also an all-around developer. I'm completely self-taught, and I also started Terrifying Jellyfish, which is a solo venture I've been going on. And I actually have a booth here as well at the St. Louis Game Developer Co-op booth. So I'm demoing my game called Fish, and it's my first ever game.
Round of applause for TJ. Round of applause. That is so awesome. Self-taught, own video game, here showing it off today. It's so awesome. Andrew, take it away and let everybody know who you are and what you do.
My name is Andrew Garrison, and I founded a small indie studio in Illinois. We have 5 people right now. We mostly make simulation games. We started out in mobile, and we have 4 of our games made it into the top 10 in the iOS App Store. And 2 of our more popular games, Simple Rockets and Simple Planes, this past year we took them to Steam, because that's really the platform that we love and that we like to work on and play on. So that's mostly about me. We don't have a booth here. Maybe next year I'll look at doing that. So.
Yes, absolutely. Round of applause for Andrew. Round of applause. So, you know, it's interesting because the video games, just hold your question just for a second, sorry about that. Video games, you know, have so many avenues. There are so many different ways that you can work in the video game industry that I think it's really important to hear from our panelists about how did they know that video game in the industry was the right career for them? Because there are a lot of intricacies with, you know, long hours or difficulty with working with maybe global, you know, creators. We have to talk with people in Germany or Ireland, and you're all working on one game. So I'd love to hear from Carol, how did you know video games were the right career, and just what inspired you to go, I'm just gonna do it, I'm gonna become a developer?
Yeah, I mean, like, so I played a lot of games as a kid, and I always, you know, for the few games that I actually made it to the end of, you know, you stare at those credits like, wow, what a life to be able to actually make this, you know, and get paid to do that. But I never really connected the dots that that could be a career for me. So I actually wound up going to college for animation, and wound up going into web development after college, until finally some friends of mine were just like, let's start working on games together. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like it could be cool, and now I love it. So it's been my focus now for the past 5 years or so.
That's awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
TJ, what about you? How did you know?
How did I know? Sonic the Hedgehog 2. That's
Sonic
like,
the Hedgehog 2!
Yeah.
Awesome!
So-
Awesome game.
Yeah, that was like the first game I ever played, and once I discovered the debug mode cheat, which is the cheat where you can just go around and put, like, place enemies and place objects around, like, it gave me a glimpse sort of into like just game development, and it got me really interested. I was just like, I wonder how this works under the hood. So that was sort of just my like dawning moment. And then later on, I discovered, like, I found the Unity game engine. I found it on my school computers at the school I went to, Crossroads College Prep. They had this game on there that kids would play to just like procrastinate homework or whatever. And I clicked the little info button, and it said made in Unity, and I was just like, what's that? So I looked it up. It was a game engine, and I just started learning it, and that's sort of how, like, once I found out that I could actually do it and that like a human could use it and make a game, then yeah.
Even a teenager.
Even a teenager. What?
I love that. I love that you saw, well, you know, you saw the word Unity. You wanted to dive in. What is that? And then you had the strength, the braveness to be like, you know what? I'm just gonna dive in. I'm gonna try it. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's weird. I didn't even think about it at the time. I didn't even think about what I was doing. I was just like, I'm gonna do this because it's cool and I enjoy it. So.
That's awesome. Awesome. Andrew, what about you? How did you know?
I was a big gamer in junior high and high school, and kind of the same thing. Where I started making levels for Doom. This is like 20 years ago.
Go do it.
And I really loved that, so I wanted to, you know, learn more about it. But the internet was horrible back then, so I had to actually learn it with a book. And I found this book called "Teach Yourself Game Programming in 21 Days." And
Wow.
it took me a lot longer than 21 days. So
Oh,
probably
man,
21 years.
why?
probably.
21 days.
Yeah. They oversold it a little bit. But then I realized when I started doing that, I really loved the programming, and I realized I liked programming more than I liked playing games. So I kind of started making games more than playing. And so I knew I liked that, so I wanted to do more of that. So I went to college and got a computer science degree, and then got out of college and realized that you really can't get a job in the Midwest in around 2005 making games. At least that's what I thought. So I did the next best thing, and I went to Boeing and I worked on flight simulators for a while.
Wow, that is cool.
Kind of satisfied with the program. I love simulation, I love programming. And then around 2009, the iPhone started getting really big, and this is back when the iPhone games were just terrible, which some people would say they still are terrible.
They really are.
But so I made some awful games with the iPhone too, and one of them was featured on a website that was kind of successful, and it enabled me to get a big user base that I was able to leverage for my next game, which I launched Simple Physics in 2011, and it hit number 7 in the iOS App Store, and I was out of my mind, excited, and I was able to go part-time, and then finally quit my job at Boeing to focus full-time on independent game development. And then in 2013, I wrote Simple Rockets, which is heavily inspired by KSP. It's a game where you build rockets and you launch them in the air.
Kerbal Space Program.
So it's a game where you kind of deceptively educate the player. So they don't realize that they're learning the like orbital mechanics as they play. So that's what we try to kind of do with our games. And then a year later, my friend decided he had enough. He worked at Boeing, and he had enough, and he wanted to try something new. So he joined me. We worked in my basement in 2014, and we released Simple Planes at the end of the year, and it hit number 2 in the iOS App Store. And then so the following year, we added 3 more people, and we moved our games from mobile to Steam. That's, like I said, that's the platform we love. So
It's incredible. It's incredible that your story went from, like you said, you didn't think it was possible, so you went to work at Boeing, and then it evolved and came to fruition from, people joining you and wanting to make it happen. That's awesome. I love it. My next question about that is, there are some misconceptions about what avenues people can work in video games. A lot of people sometimes only think of like artists and programmers, and like what other avenues, and I know all of you are kind of involved, I think, in the hiring process, and you look at applications and you look at people wanting to join your game studio. So I'd love to hear just about what type of jobs you look for, and the strange jobs. Like a Valve employee told me that Valve hires psychologists and psychiatrists, and they hire them to interview gamers and talk to them about how they feel when they play the game and what makes them excited, what makes them bored, what makes them afraid. And it's just things like that. Like, I had no idea that video game companies wanted to hire just different jobs that you wouldn't think of exist in the gaming industry. So, Carol, take it away.
Yeah, so I mean, like, that's one of the really amazing things, is that, like, there's a lot to making games, and so especially with larger studios. I mean, with our studio, we're pretty small. There's 5 of us, and it's, we have our partners who wear a lot of hats, but there's kind of a producer role, there's an artist role, there's a narrative design role, there's a game design role, there's programming, and like TJ said, technical art, and that's kind of like the hub, and even then some. But like, there's like I said, there's narrative design, so there's writing, there's PR, which is something that we all kind of do. There's marketing, there's QA, which is quality assurance testing, play testing. So that kind of falls under that psychology thing. Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot, and if you start getting into board game design and things like that, then there's prototyping and play testing with that too.
What advice would you give anyone out there that wants to apply for a video game job, or is interested in just where to begin? What's that first step? Whether if you have any like specific schools, like you got animation background. TJ, you said, hey, no, I don't have any video game school under my belt, but I went out there and tackled it. So give me an idea of just advice you would give for people out there that want to get involved but aren't sure how.
Do you guys have any?
I think the opportunities are incredible now for being an indie game developer. So I think that would be the way to get started, in my opinion. I mean, with digital distribution, the app stores that have popped up everywhere, it's just an incredible opportunity. I know they take out 30% of your sales when you sell through an app store, but I mean, they do a lot for you too. They do all the credit card processing, they do refunds, they do bandwidth costs. So that's just all something you don't have to worry about anymore.
Yeah, I would echo that. Get started making games on your own first, and kind of explore that and kind of learn all the aspects of it, so that you can really find what it is that you love doing, and then start honing that.
Yeah, you'll be honestly really surprised at how many free resources there are to just like make games and learn how to make games. Like, I was definitely surprised when I first started learning. I literally just Googled like how to do this in Unity, and like I would get an answer, and I was able to like take that knowledge and apply it to several situations. So eventually a game was made.
Yeah, and as far as schools, I recommend go to college or something for something that interests you beyond game design. If you know that you want to go into game design, expand your horizons outside of that, and that's going to inspire you in ways that you would never expect. And I think that that's something that I'm really glad for in my schooling. And I can only speak from my own experience, but having had, I mean, and granted, animation can very closely be applied to games, even though I don't animate a lot in the games that I make. But just even the other classes that I took, the literature classes, the psychology classes, all of those things really feed into how I create games today.
I love that. I love that. Speaking on from the writer's perspective, I've been asked to create video game lore for companies and character designs and help with dialogue. So if there's anyone out there interested in the writing aspect, again, if for me, example, I wouldn't want to design the game myself, but I want to be involved. I want to write for video games. So it's kind of cool that if you're interested in the writing aspect, you can write samples from your favorite games. Like if you like, Call of Duty, you can write a new weapon design that you think could go hand in hand in their IP. And you can go to conventions like this and meet people that work under Activision and work on these games and be prepared right there. Be like, hey, I came up with this cool, weapon that I think would go right into Call of Duty. Or, if you're like me and love fantasy, I remember writing a species design for Hal Hood, who works in BioWare in Austin. And he's like, yeah, geez, I just want to, see what fantasy character you would come up with. So I wrote, just like a 2-page description of a new species that could go right into a fantasy game. And it's things like that where, think about doing the job that you want even before you have it.
Yeah, start building your portfolio immediately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's so cool. One more quick story before I let you jump off. A musician that now works for Blizzard on all of their World of Warcraft games, Diablo, StarCraft, he said he built this composition of this song and brought it to a convention. And there were video game developers and hiring managers on the panel. And just real politely after the panel, he came up and was like, hey, I don't know if you have time. I'm a composer. I'd love for you. I have my earbuds. If you have time, some time to hear my score, I think it would go hand in hand with your game. And sure enough, he popped it in and listened to it, and he was like, wow, this is amazing. I'd love to stay connected. So they exchanged emails, and he got a job, and his dream job by doing the work ahead of time. I just thought that was so inspiring so go for it. TJ or Andrew or Carol, are those the best ways to kind of find your niche and then try to do the job you want?
Yeah. So yeah, I'd say definitely like take your ideas and like show them to people. That's something that's really important. Like once you make something, show it. So that that's something that developers do a lot. They like keep their projects to themselves, and like you start to not see like the flaws in what you make if it's just you looking at it. So yeah, definitely like send it to people and like get feedback on it.
Absolutely. Andrew, any other thoughts?
Yeah, that's great advice. I was actually had a note about that same thing. Yeah. I was going to mention that's really incredibly important to show your game early, show it often, because I think some people. I know when I first started, I was thinking I don't want to show my game to anybody. They're going to steal my idea, and really anybody that has the ability to steal your idea doesn't care about your idea because they have 12 of their own that they're already working on. So it's really important to get that early feedback. Absolutely.
Awesome. My next question for you guys is: there are some realities and then some maybe not so realities about what it's like to work in the industry. Basically, it does crunch really exist, and what is the day-to-day feeling? What should our audiences know if they want to work in the industry? What to expect? Does your job change day to day, or even with a AAA studio? What's different with working a big studio and a little?
Yeah, there are huge differences in the game industry between AAA and indie, and so I think the three of us are pretty sole experience in the games industry itself is in indie, so we can speak to that. Maybe you can kind of fill in those gaps.
For sure.
In an indie studio, a lot of times you'll see crunch. Our studio, we try to avoid it because we know how unhealthy it is. We kind of consider crunch time being just bad management. So that's kind of that is something that you're going to see a lot. Is we're going to ask you to stay until 10 p.m. and we'll buy you pizza, it's okay. If you watch a lot of game documentaries, you'll see that. And that's, it is a part of the industry, that's a part of the tech industry in general, and it's often a part of a lot of creative industries. So that's something that you may be asked to do. In a small studio, you'll also be asked to wear a lot of hats. So you're going to be asked to consider art with your programming. You're at least going to be expected to have some sort of understanding of aesthetics if you're a programmer, and some understanding of programming if you're an artist, if you want to work in a small team so that you can kind of communicate a little bit easier.
Yeah, I definitely recommend having like a diverse skill set. So like don't focus on just one area. Like if you're going to be an artist, learn a bit of programming. If you're going to be a programmer, do a little bit of art. Like it's definitely
that's so much to ask though. Like I feel like as an artist I'd be terrified to do programming. As a programmer I'd be terrified. But it makes sense.
Yeah, you'll discover like if you learn both, you can use them both to like enhance each other. So like
interesting.
Yeah, it definitely like can improve your art if you learn a bit of
Or
programming.
at least read the 21 Days book that Andrew read. And there you go. That's awesome, DJ. Thank you. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, I love working independent. I think it's great. It's absolutely my dream job. And I think, like Carol said, you really have a lot more. You have to do a lot more jobs, obviously. if you work on a AAA game, you're probably going to be working on a very tiny little slice of the game. Like I forget who I was talking to, but they knew someone who worked at a AAA studio, and their job was to draw shadows of characters in the ground for every frame of animation as they're like doing their attacks, and that just sounds really incredibly tedious and boring. And that kind of stuff would happen.
Love shadows, though.
That's right, that's right. Yeah, I was going to echo that same thing. All the developers that I've worked alongside of on big studios, you know, they have a very specific talent that they've worked, a craft that they've worked and perfected forever and ever, and then they do that day in and day out. They either make the same asset for the same game, or a matte painter that works. Actually, he did the cover of my book. You know, the front and back. He's an Italian matte painter that Blizzard hired specifically to do backgrounds on all of their cinematics, which is an awesome job. I'm not saying it's boring or tedious, but that's what he does. Day in and day out, he creates backgrounds. That's what he does. So yeah, it's interesting to hear the differences with, you know, steady and the same, or put on those hats for all the different.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the universal difference between small business and corporate, you know, so like in a corporate environment, you're going to have one very specific job. In a small business, you're going to be expected to do a lot more. Absolutely. And it's the same for indie versus AAA.
I have an awesome Twitter question. Thank you so much for taking me up on my Twitter offer. Is there an indie database to see what people are making to get ideas, similar to an IMDb for games?
Yeah, so there's itch.io, which is a website where anyone can upload a game, and so that's definitely a good resource to like just discover a bunch of like new games that like you've probably never seen before.
There's even a website called IndieDB, where indies can just upload information about their games, very similar to IMDb.
Any other tips, Chris?
Steam Greenlight, I mean, you
Yeah.
can stay on there for hours looking at all the ones that are on there.
Also, Twitter, I found a lot of indie developers are on Twitter. For some reason, that's just the social network we all flock to, I guess. But that's definitely how like I found out about most indie developers and got in contact with a lot of them. So
yeah, you can follow hashtags like indie games and hashtag Screenshot Saturday and things like that. You'll see, yeah, game dev. You'll see a lot of really cool stuff that's happening all over the world.
And there's a game jam happening today at 5:30 to 7:30, right? A live game jam. And that basically means that developers create a video game live in front of the audience with audience interaction. But I understand, so everybody check that out if you have time. But I understand that you lead or are involved in the game jams here in St. Louis. Can you share with how people can get involved in the industry right here?
Yeah, so St. Louis is like a really awesome community and is really game jam focused in that a lot of our studios actually were born out of game jams. And if you're not familiar, a game jam is a 48-hour game development event similar to a hackathon if you're familiar with that, where essentially dozens or hundreds in our case of aspiring and professionals developers get together, form teams, get a theme, and then make a game from start to finish within 48 hours. It's phenomenal. Most recently we did our global game jam at UMSL, and we had over 300 people there, and we wound up making like something like 50 games, and it was just amazing. And so that happens every year here in St. Louis. There are a lot of upcoming events. I actually even have flyers because the St. Louis Game Developer Co-op, we host events that are hugely educational and offer opportunities like that monthly. And Riot Games, which I see some Riot folks here even, are super kind, and they host a lot of our events for us. So we have 4 even upcoming.
Yes.
Come find.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on that before I jump to my next?
Just that I recommend game jams, definitely.
Highly recommended.
So yeah, game jams. I made my first game at a game jam actually, a game jam called Ludum Dare, and that's how I made my first game, Fish, which is on Steam right now. Like I made it like 3 years ago, and like you can definitely like polish up your game and sell it actually. And so that game that I just last minute decided to make is on Steam right now and is selling well. So I highly recommend it.
On that same note, TJ, I actually have a question for you specifically about how did you begin the character creation process or the world building of your game? I mean, again, you tackled this without, you know, getting your college degree first.
Sure.
How did you come up with the characters and just building the world?
Yeah, so I just get ideas. I steal a lot of ideas from like dreams I have. I have like weird, really weird dreams. But
It's a good method.
it's a good method, definitely. But yeah, that's how I do. That's how I like create stuff. Just the first thing that comes to my mind, and I often aim for like weird and humorous. Like the one time I even tried making something serious and it just ended up like just being silly. So that's where I mostly like aim my focus. Just anything ridiculous and like somewhat like original too.
I like it. Andrew, what about you? If someone out there wants to make a game but isn't sure what to narrow down for the scope, how do you make the scope tangible?
That's difficult. We're struggling with that right now, actually, because we're getting ready to start our next game, and it's just hard. I mean, you just have to keep plowing through it, and just.
For writing, I feel like when I get stuck, I use editors. Do you guys do that, where you like show it to someone and they maybe edit it or give you
feedback?
Yeah.
Feedback is a huge part, and I mean, it would echo something that we've been talking about earlier even, is just show your stuff to other people, even if you're writing. So I'm the narrative designer of our current console game, and I just felt like garbage. I was writing these characters, I was writing these quests, I was building this world, and at first, it's great, and then after a while you just start staring at this stuff and you're just like, this isn't any good, there's nothing going on here. And then finally I just sat down with the whole team and we just read it all out loud, like story time. And seeing their reactions and hearing their feedback just kind of reinvigorated me and made it so much easier to then start building on that and making it even more, more exactly what it needed to be.
Awesome.
Yes. Something else that really helps is having constraints. So like for game jams, they have themes. So like the theme for Fish, the theme was evolution. So I made a game around that. But yeah, definitely like come up with your own constraints. Like I don't know. Players can only move sideways, or all characters are talking animals, or something like that, or coins hurt you. Like, yes, just something.
Another great Twitter question. Thank you, everybody. Where did the rest of the panel? Sorry, TJ, not you, because you didn't go to college yet, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where did the rest of the panel go to college, and what degree did you major in? I'll go first. I majored in English, so it went hand in hand with my writing. It was very beneficial. So yeah, if you want to do anything writing in the video game industry, any degree in literature and writing will help so much, because you have professors that push you under deadlines and they hold you accountable, and you get this portfolio, to use Carol's words, where you can show your passion. You can show what is your niche. Do you like fantasy, sci-fi? Do you want to do realism, action-based? And just start writing those samples. Start writing zones, environments, what you could picture in a game, weapons, species, and then fights, action-based. So that's for me, Kara.
Yeah, I went to Webster University here in St. Louis. My degree was technically interactive digital media with emphasis in animation, which now they actually have a game design program, and their interactive digital media degree, I think, spans web and kiosk design and things like that. And yeah, I mean, just learning various interactive tools was really, really helpful. I actually even made a 3D video of like the recreation of Super Mario Super Mario 3 World 1-1 that like wound up going viral on YouTube like sophomore year of college, and it was really weird. But yeah, it's cool to be able to explore those different tools.
For sure. Andrew, college and degree?
I went to SIUE and got a degree in computer science, and it was hugely helpful just to have a good formal education in programming. Although honestly today, though, with the web, as great as it is, all the resources that are freely available to go learn how to program, it's definitely not necessary to get a CS degree to be like a really good programmer now. So it really helped me at that time, but honestly now, with the web as good as it is,
maybe find a different focus and learn more outside of the expected.
Awesome. All right, we're almost ready for open Q&A, so have those questions ready. But before we do that, I just wanted to ask you guys about the collaboration, about working with teams. A lot of times, moms, dads, friends will ask me, what is it like as far as, what if you're introverted? What if it's hard to work? Yeah, well, honestly, Carol and I have talked about this. Like, we are secretly introverted, but we force ourselves to get up here and talk about these great topics. But, if you're fighting with just, intimidating factors, but you want to be a part of this or that, do you have any advice for how collaboration, for how the video game industry really is like a family, and how, either welcoming or advice for that. Anybody can join in about your story, or do you want me to go first?
I'm like, I just feel like I've been hogging the mic, so I just want to give other people the opportunity to talk.
TJ, Andrew, you want to jump in first?
Well, if you're struggling with like networking and like talking to other like game developers or whatever, I say maybe make a game out of it. Like maybe be like,
Cool.
yeah, be like, oh, today I'm gonna hand out 20 business cards, or I'm gonna shake 10 people's hands, or I'm gonna like try to find someone else to work with. So yeah, definitely like set goals for yourself and like approach them. So that's a good thing to do.
Love that, love that. Andrew.
I'm very introverted too, and it's definitely difficult to approach people. Like I went to GDC and I wanted to talk to people there, obviously. And at first it was difficult, but we're all interested in the same thing. So once I started talking about game development, I can talk for hours with people. So just breaking through that initial ice, that's really the only difficult part.
I totally agree. I feel like a great opener is just if you're beside a banner or a game, you can be like, oh, have you ever played this? Or, man, I love RPGs. Or, man, MMOs are my thing. And I don't know, it's easy to get into it. And knowing, again, going back to knowing that end goal, feeling what you're drawn toward, what part of the industry really excites you, and then finding those panels or those conventions that work toward that. I love that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's just really important to know, as an introvert, extroversion is a learned skill. And you have to exercise that muscle, and it is really, really hard, but it's possible. And I think Janice and I are both examples of that.
Yes.
You know, and another really, really cool thing to know is just the games industry is a wonderful place where like competition doesn't exist, and people are just really, really awesome in general. Like game developers are really good people for the vast majority of them, and it's easy to talk.
It's so true. To give you a very personal quick story, 5-6 years ago, it was surviving some really violent, traumatic experiences, which left me feeling like I couldn't do this, like I would never be able to talk in public again or meet strangers. And honestly, it is gaming that, sorry, see, I'm gonna get teared up. It was the video game community that helped me heal and helped me be able to write in video games and pour my fears of villains in the real world into villains in games and books. So, man, I'm getting real with you guys, but it really is true to be able to come from a basis of fear and then overcome it. Slightly. It's still there, as you can tell. But yeah, I have another great Twitter question to get me off the hook. What is your favorite engine? Thank you for the question. What is your favorite engine or the best engine for a beginner to start with?
So the engine that I use is Game Salad, and it's made for kids. And I've published games from Game Salad, and it's really easy to use because I'm not a programmer. I'm a web coder at most, and like having a drag and drop interface like that, where all you really need to know is programming methodology, which is just logic. That really allows you to do a lot.
Yeah, something also really easy. It's not too flexible, but you can use it to learn. Is something called Scratch. It's definitely something that's really easy to start with. And once you're done with Scratch, like there's Game Maker also, which that's a bit more high level, but you can do a lot in it. And Unity is definitely my favorite engine. That's my like go-to engine for like every idea I have.
I love the prodding, Carol.
Talk about your favorite!
And what about you? What are your favorites or the best or what have you?
We're using Unity for simple planes. That's the first time I've really had used it, and I'm a big fan. I think it's great. Although after we started using Unity, they had free in the commercial, and then Unreal was just like we didn't consider doing that. And then right after we started using Unity, Unreal came out with their subscription model, and it became totally affordable. We really kind of wondered if we made the right decision, but I'm still really happy with Unity, and it's great because you can deploy to mobile too, and our games work fairly well, pretty good on mobile, I guess. So that I'm a big fan.
Awesome, awesome. All right, I just have one last thing I want to ask you guys about just advice for, I heard that a really great gem is to find a mentor or find someone that you can bounce ideas off of or stay connected to. So do we miss anything, or can you give us any last tips or tricks for connecting, finding a mentor, getting involved in the industry that we haven't covered, whether it's conventions or anything else?
So yeah, definitely come to local game events. And if there's no like game developer events like near you, you can like start one. Just find other game developers in in the area, and just reach out to them and be like, hey, let's get together, or and bounce ideas off each other.
Okay, because you can even get involved as a gamer just by posting on forums, right? And just getting involved online and supporting Kickstarters for games that you like. So I kind of like that there are even more avenues now to be kind of a game developer, right? Because you're putting funds to a certain game or adding in ideas. So
I met my dungeon master on Kickstarter.
nice, true story right here. Magic happened on Kickstarter. I love it. Awesome, awesome. Andrew, any other tips before I open it up?
Yeah, no, the game jams and the game dev drink I've started a lot of fun too, just to talk with other developers and meet people around St. Louis, so I highly recommend those.
Awesome, very cool. Okay, any questions from the audience? Yes?
Well, you mentioned like programming languages. Recently, I've been self-teaching myself in Game Maker.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned like the book, the program in 20 days. Are there any other like good resources besides? I watch tutorial videos in order to learn. So what kind of like?
Any other resources? That
Yeah,
you
what
guys
are just the
haven't
best
mentioned?
resources for someone who's just wants to do this amateur, who does not have a dream of making a career out of this, someone who just wants to learn for the fun of it and tinker around with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one specific thing is Google something called Pixel Prospector. They're a website that they pretty much gather all the free resources out there.
So
that
this
you
would
can
be just a
use.
gathering of the minds and resources, in other words.
Yeah, it's like they have a list of free game engines. They have a list of
Because I do use
marketing
Game
stuff.
Maker, and I am enjoying Game Maker very much.
Very
that's
cool,
good.
very cool. And before I forget, we have a panel about writing, so if there's any writers out there, right after this at 5:30, about how to finish a book, publish a book, and you can find me in Artist Alley, row B. That's where my booth is.
Yes.
You can find Carol at the Game Developer booth in the Gaming Center.
Yep, same with
TJ, Andrew, will you be there at all if people want to connect with you today or tomorrow?
I have to be leaving soon after this, but you
Okay.
can look us up at jundry.com or Facebook. Or
Jundru.com or at Facebook, Happy Badger Studio. I want to make sure to say that before I let you all go. Yes, the woman right there. Yes, yes, yes. Colored hair.
I just had a question. What did you write for BioWare?
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm not used to getting questions. It's so exciting. I was doing experimental, like species design, world design. So I was writing new zones and environments for them, new creatures that could be in the games. Basically, giving away ideas. Basically, I was helping them expand their horizons. So it's really fun.
Did it make it into anything?
It's actually happening right now. Yeah, so yeah, I can't unveil it, but it is. It's happening right now. Thank you for the question. I feel so special. Yes?
In your different experiences, how did you go about finding music for your games, and what are some things that you look for in people that want to compose or have music games, even if it's something small, acquiring an item or?
That's such a good question. I'm going to repeat it so everybody can hear. What is the advice for music in games? If someone's interested in being a composer, you said even items?
Yeah, something as small as even acquiring an item, the sound and music that goes with that.
Go for it, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so music's the one thing that I don't know how to do, so it's definitely good to reach out to local musicians that you know to collaborate with them. That's one of the things where it's really good to collaborate, and it's really good in a portfolio. And music is very important in games. It can tell the player a lot without them even knowing it. It can set the mood for a game. Indicate coin pickups, as you said, indicate tension, and things like that. So it's definitely really important.
Are you looking into getting into sound design and music design for games? Yeah, so there's loads of people in St. Louis who you can talk to who are doing that, and they're just people look for musicians and sound designers who have worked on stuff that might fit their theme, really. And I mean, just get connected with the game industry in St. Louis and start getting to know us and letting us know what kinds of music you've got, and then,
Magic,
Yeah, music
magic
people-
just happened.
Yeah, music people are very important, and they're a valuable resource.
And come to
it's
game
good
jams.
to have. Yeah.
They're highly, highly regarded at game jams.
Yeah, very good.
Awesome, awesome. I saw a hand over here, didn't I? Didn't I see a hand? Maybe over here, maybe in the back, maybe over there. No hands?
hands.
We answered every one of your questions? Wow, you guys are really good. I'm gonna have you on more panels more often. All right, so going once, any last questions for the panelists? All right, thank you guys so much for coming. Huge round of applause for you guys and for my panelists.